Hey, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. I actually had a recorded video for you that was supposed to start 15 minutes ago, and something happened and it didn't work. So I'm back. I'm off my call and I'm live. So if you are watching live, if you could say hi in the chat, let me know where you're tuning in from. That would be awesome. And I know a lot of you will probably watch the replay because you were expecting this to start several minutes ago, which it didn't. So anyway, we have a great topic tonight, and hopefully some of you will be tuning in, whatever platform you're watching this on. If you could just say hi, let me know where you're tuning in from. That would be awesome. Because we're going to talk about ADHD at work, how to deal with time wasters, productivity killers, things like that. So maybe you're overwhelmed at work. Maybe you're buried in to-do lists. I don't know, always catching up. These are things that I hear, never getting ahead. If this sounds familiar, I want you to take a look at how you're spending your time unwisely. Because, you know, everybody mismanages their time sometimes, but people with ADHD particularly struggle in this area. Maybe you're always late to work. Maybe you're so distractible that you have trouble completing tasks on time. Or maybe you get bogged down for hours on some minor task. Maybe you can't find your phone under all the mountain of paperwork on your desk. And so from time to time, everybody confronts things like that on the job. And, we all could use a little tune up. But for adults with ADHD, staying on top of details, it's just an endless struggle. It brings conflict sometimes with managers, missed promotions, a stalled career. On average, studies suggest that college graduates with ADHD earn $4,300 less per year than their peers who don't have ADHD. People with ADHD change jobs frequently, sometimes impulsively. They're more likely to be fired or to miss work or to have troubled relationships with coworkers. But it does not have to be that way. Adults with ADHD frequently excel in the workplace. The trick is once they adapt to their ADHD and they develop coping skills. Because not knowing how to work with your ADHD can cause some self-esteem issues. And a lot of people see their ADHD as like a negative thing. But the truth is, a lot of entrepreneurs, and entertainers, politicians, artists, business leaders that are super successful have ADHD. I think in particular, one of the first ones I heard about was the CEO of JetBlue Airlines, David Neeleman. He actually he's been interviewed a lot about his ADHD, and he attributes it to his success. And he says that if there was some magic pill that would take away his ADHD, he wouldn't take it. He actually invented e-tickets because he knew he kept misplacing his airline tickets every time he flew. So he created a system that wouldn't require paper tickets. So the key to succeeding at work, despite ADHD, is to tailor your workplace environment so you take best advantage of your strong points, maybe like your creativity or your people skills. And you want to minimize the negative impact of your weaknesses. We all have strengths and weaknesses, people with or without ADHD. So you want to play to your strengths. It's really about figuring out how to be efficient and effective in your job. And there's usually some creative way to do this. And it may involve shifting responsibilities, maybe hiring somebody to do something that you find difficult. I mean, knowing how to delegate is a valuable skill. It's often overlooked skill, but you know, think about it. People don't mind hiring somebody to clean their house or cut their grass, but why are we so reluctant to do the same thing with job related work? Um, some of that your boss expects you to do, but some of it you could get help with. You know, ADHD it affects the executive functions in our brain, and so people with ADHD a lot of times have poor time management or maybe difficulty setting priorities, and all those kind of things affect your work. They have to do with executive function. That's a set of cognitive abilities that's in the brain's prefrontal cortex, prefrontal lobe. That's a part of your brain that does self monitoring. So your executive functioning tells you whether you're on time or not, whether you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, whether you're doing it in an efficient way. Basically the skills that we expect most adults to have, right? But in people with ADHD, the prefrontal lobe, it's chronically under aroused. So the ability to monitor behavior is impaired. Um, and poor executive functioning, that explains why a person with ADHD could waste hours on a minor task or get distracted by the slightest interruption. And that's why, papers never get filed and the office is always a mess. And to their colleagues, workers with ADHD may appear to be irresponsible, disorganized, or just downright lazy. But the truth is, people with ADHD often work even harder than their colleagues in a desperate attempt to keep up. They're smart, they're capable, but they find themselves not working up to their potential. And their attention span seems to fluctuate. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. Sometimes they'll do brilliant and amazing things, and other times they're just not there. Everything seems to come harder for them sometimes. And I always think about, people with ADHD are like ducks in the water. They look like on the outside that they're just swimming effortlessly. But if you had an underwater camera, you would see underneath they're just paddling furiously under the surface, trying to just stay afloat. And maybe you feel like that. Put in the chat if you've had a week or a month where you felt like a duck. You're just trying to look like you got it all together, but underneath you're falling apart. So it's really a two-pronged approach to, to being successful with ADHD at work. I'm not a doctor. I don't give medical advice, but you do probably want to talk to a doctor about a combination of medication and counseling or coaching, because you want to develop strategies for dealing with the problems that arise on the job. So if you fit the diagnostic criteria of ADHD, hyperactivity, distractibility, compulsive behavior, if that's in 2 or more settings on a chronic basis, and it goes back to when you were a child, like 6 years old or whatever, then you probably could benefit from medication. But I always say that pills are not skills. You always, whether you have medicine or not, you've got to learn the strategies that work with your brain. So with the right medication, you may find that you're able to sit quietly at work and focus on a task without getting distracted, maybe control your impulsive behavior. But it's not enough to just find a drug. There's so many other factors. You got to look at other health things you've got going on, what other medicines you're taking, your diet, your sleep schedule. The dosage needs to cover you for the full time that you're on the job, because typically ADHD meds come in like 4, 8, and 12-hour doses. So if you leave for work at 7:30 in the morning and you don't finish till 6:30 in the evening, then the 8-hour pill that you took before going to work wore off about 3:30. And so you got to take another 4-hour pill at 3:30. And some of those interfere with your sleep too. So you don't want it to last too long. So there's a trick there. And if you plan to work at home, you got to have coverage in the evening as well. So, like I said, pills are not skills. You've got to manage the challenges with or without medication. So, first, you want to make sure you end distractions at work as much as you can. Develop a workplace strategy that will enable you to work at your peak efficiency, and minimizing distractions. That needs to be a top priority. Maybe you come in to work early when it's quiet, and you can focus and get your work done. If you have a flexible schedule or you have a private office, that's terrific. If not, you may be able to take your work to another place, maybe an empty office or a conference room. When you're working on something, don't answer the phone. Let your voicemail take messages. Turn it on silent. I even put mine in another room sometimes when I'm trying to do focused work. And so discourage interruptions. You might even want to put some sort of do not disturb sign on your office. Now you may word it differently, but let people know that you can't be disturbed for a temporary time period. Excuse me. Some water. Excuse me. So minimize visual distractions. Maybe you need to face your desk toward a wall. It doesn't need to be facing the doorway where you see people walking back and forth. And you want to keep your workplace free of clutter. I know it's a challenge sometimes, but all that's going to do is direct your focus somewhere else. And not all distractions are external. We've got all kind of stuff going on in our heads as well. There's one psychologist that identified 3 different types of internal distractions. Let's see if I can remember what they are. Aha, oh no, and ho hum. Oh ho. And so, you've got what am I trying to say? You've got like these random thoughts or these ideas, creative ideas that pop up in the middle of unrelated work. That's kind of like an aha. And so to avoid getting sidetracked, put them down on a notepad for later review, then to just immediately go back to the job at hand. I keep a little spiral notebook. Some people put sticky notes on like a parking lot on a whiteboard, but get them out of your head onto paper, knowing that they'll be there when you're ready for them later. And then the oh no, those are distractions where you suddenly remember, oh no, I forgot to do something, and your brain immediately wants to jump up and go do it, which is pulling you away from what you're supposed to be doing. So to prevent that, you got to use a planning system. You need to write down all of your appointments, your phone calls, your meetings. Don't try to hold it in your memory, because if you have ADHD, you probably have short-term memory issues. And then the ho-hum, those are just like daydreaming, it's an avoidance tactic. And it's a sign that you need to make your work more interesting, or you need to find a more interesting job, really, but try tailoring your solutions to the particular problem. There was one example of a scientist that had trouble with a long set of instructions. And in the work that he did, it was important that he couldn't miss a single step, or the whole experiment would be ruined. So they came up with a double checklist system. And so he would check off each item on the list, and then he would have somebody else quickly double check the time. And that just took a couple extra minutes a day, but it saved untold amounts of wasted time and money. So think about things like that. If you're prone to hyper focus, where you just work on something so intently that you lose all track of time, then you need to cue yourself. Have an alarm or a post-it note or a box that pops up on your computer screen. Anything that makes you aware of the time and of what you should be doing. Um, and if you kind of lean on the hyperactive end of the spectrum, you'll need to take every opportunity to move around at work. Pace around while you're talking on the phone. you know, if you need to talk to a colleague, get up and walk over to their office instead of calling them on the phone. I'm a big fan of breaks. Take a break every 30 minutes, or sometimes I take a break after 20 minutes. Just to stand up, walk around, go get a drink of water, go to the restroom, just movement, because it does refire those brain chemicals, and it just helps you focus. Um, it helps you stay on schedule. Uh, a lot of people with ADHD find it helpful to just get a detailed work schedule. Maybe they get the assistance of a coworker or supervisor, and then they check back periodically to make sure everything's on track. And I know structure sounds boring, but keeping your day well structured it's key. Um, you know, it, I know people who meet with their manager every morning to prioritize the day. Um, and making impulsive commitments that can disrupt your schedule. So make it a point to think twice before agreeing to any offer or request. I always say qualify your yes instead of just automatically knee jerk saying yes. Think of something that you're going to say, like, always take time to think about it. In other words, say something like, "I'd like to, but let me look at my calendar first." Um, you know, when you're scheduling, always allow more time than you think that you'll need to get somewhere, because you, you know things always take longer than you think. So don't focus on the arrival time. If you're supposed to be somewhere at 2 o'clock, don't think 2 o'clock, because your brain will not allow you enough time for travel. Focus on the time that you need to leave your present location. So instead of thinking 2 o'clock, you think 1:30, 1:30, Um, and be careful too not to give in to just that one more thing impulse. Like when you're about to leave, you just think, I got to do this one more thing before I leave the house or before I leave the office. Just write it down and act on it later. You know, so this is what I do all day, every day as an ADHD productivity coach. Um, is I spend time with people discussing their work related issues, and a lot of people are turning to coaches as opposed to therapists to devise a strategy that works, because coaches. Uh, what I do is help people get clear on exactly what they need to do in order to do the best job that they can. Everybody's different. Some people need a fidget toy at their desk. Some people want to stand up at a standing desk. Uh, there are small things that you can implement that will make you so much more productive, and it won't cost your company a thing, So I get the question sometimes, should I tell my boss that I have ADHD? Um, and if medication's doing its job, and you've got coping strategies that are working well, you may decide you don't need to tell your boss or anybody else that you have ADHD. Um, You know, a good argument could be made for letting your supervisor know because um, people might already notice that you're missing details or you have a hard time focusing, and maybe they're calling it laziness or irresponsibility or lack of intelligence. But when people find out that you have ADHD, sometimes they give you a little more grace and you treat it a little better. Um, it really, you have to read people, and it depends. It depends on how you think that's gonna go. I mean, ideally, you'd tell your boss, and then you'd get an ally in helping you set up the optimal work environment. Um, but you can do that without spelling out the fact that you have ADHD. I mean, you can say things about how you don't want to be distracted without saying, I get distracted easily because I have ADHD. Um, I mean, you could just go and say, hey, I wanted to let you know that really work best in the early morning when the office is quiet. Is it okay if I come in an hour early? I mean, you know, uh, uh, but on the other hand, if you tell them you have ADHD, you can protect yourself legally because ADHD is covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's the same law that requires buildings to have wheelchair access and stuff like that. So you're entitled to get some accommodations, and you gotta disclose it for that. Um, I don't know. It's a tricky thing. It really just depends. Maybe you need permission to move around when you're working, or maybe you need more time for certain tasks. Those are some accommodations that you might negotiate for. But at any rate, it really just depends on the person, and it depends on the boss, right? So, um, again, I'm sorry for coming on late. Had some tech issues. I had a Zoom call, so I recorded this, and I was gonna play the recording, but the recording didn't play. So as soon as I got off my call, I jumped on here, and so I hope I caught some of you. Hi, Kathy. I see Kathy. So whatever platform you're watching this on, if you're watching the replay, just say hashtag replay and let me know. I hope these tips are helpful for you. And I hope you have a great week. And I hope you're very productive at work. And I will see you next time. Bye.